In this video, we are going to be discussing things like amplitude, maximum value, minimum value, range, period, and all those things, right? So ladies and gentlemen, we are given f of x here, but we need to remember that the basic form is f of x equals to a sine b x plus p plus q. That is our basic form. So let's extract. A will be minus 3. All right. And then we can see that B would be 2. Then we can see that P would be positive 10. And Q would be negative 1. Those are the 4 things you must always be able to extract from any given trigonometric function. And from there, we can get a whole lot of things. Number 1, let's get the amplitude. Amplitude. I'm going to denote the amplitude with a capital letter A. So the amplitude, you look at the small letter A. The number in front of sine is minus 3, as we have shown here. And then the negative sign does not make the amplitude negative. And amplitude is the distance. So it is always positive. So a capital letter A can be negative. You must remember it's always positive. And that is your amplitude. You just take the value basically. Even if it's negative, the amplitude is always positive. The negative sign just means the graph has been reflected in the x-axis. We're going to talk about that later. But for now, remember the amplitude is always what? Positive. The amplitude is always positive. Okay, perfect. And then let's go on, guys. After getting the amplitude, we need to get the maximum value. And that is a y value. So I'm going to call it y max. Y max, it's easy. It's always q plus a. That is the formula. It's always q plus the amplitude. It's always q plus the amplitude. Our q is minus 1. Our amplitude is positive 3. So our answer for y max will be positive 2. I'm sure it makes sense, ladies and gents. Perfect. Now let's get the minimum value. Y mean would be q minus the amplitude. So y max is q plus the amplitude. Y mean is q minus the amplitude. So our q is minus 1, then minus 3. Then we're going to have minus 4. And that gives us the what? The minimum value. Then from there, we can easily get the range. The range of a function, you must get the minimum value and the maximum value. Because the range runs from the minimum to the maximum. So this is how we're going to write the range. So it's going to be from the minimum less than or equals to the y value. Remember, range refers to the y values, which is less than or equals to the maximum. Be careful, always start with the minimum, the maximum, and make sure you show y in between because that is the range. Some people would write it this way, would say y element, a square bracket from negative 4 to 2 and a square bracket. These are both correct. It's entirely up to your own preference as how you want to do it. Perfect. So ladies and gentlemen, now we need to find the period of f. The period of a sine graph, it's always found by 360 over b. You always take your 360 you divide by b, always for sine and cos graph. Sine and cos graph, the period is 360 divided by b. So in this case, 360, if you check, our b is 2. Our b is 2. So we're going to divide this by 2. And that will give us 180 degrees. That is the period of this function. All right. Then from there, this was b. All this was a, yeah. And then on C, they want us to explain the transformations. Transformation. transformations. Ne? Sharp. They say describe the transformation of the matter graph. So we want to know what happened to matter graph to form f of x. Ne? Sharp. So guys, let's start. We're gonna list our, let me just rewrite my function again. My function is f of x is equals to -3 sine 2x plus 10 minus 1. So guys, we're gonna start here. Yeah? We're gonna start here and come here and come there and come there, because we want to know what happened to sine x. So we see we added a -3 there, we added a 2, we added a +10, and we also added a -1. So we're going to explain what does each do. Ne? Let's start now. Number 1, we're focusing on the -3. Ne? Sharp. The -3 causes what? A vertical stretch. So A is always a vertical stretch. Ne? So vertical stretch by factor of 3. So whatever number they put here, it's either stretch or compress. Ne? If it's 0 point something, if that number there is 0 point something, then it's compression. But if it's not 0 point something, if it's not 0 point something, then it's stretch, because we're getting bigger. You get it? We multiplied by a bigger number, so we are stretching. But if it's 0 point something, it means we multiplied by a smaller number, so we are compressing vertically. Ne? Now let's talk about this sign. If you have a negative here, it means you have reflected. Ne? This negative just means reflection. So we had a reflection in the x-axis because of that negative. That negative just tells you there was a reflection in the x-axis. If it was positive, then it would mean there was no reflection. It will just be a vertical stretch. That was about the 3. Now we're going to talk about the 2. Ne? Okay. The 2, remember B changes the period. Ne? Now, let's see. Can you agree that the matter graph had a period moved from 360 to 180? If you check here, the period of the matter graph is 360, but B changes the period to make it 180. So we can see we compressed there, right? There was a compression there. So now this is how we're going to do it, because the period got smaller. If the period gets smaller, you always say horizontal compression. Horizontal compression by a factor of, you see, if B is 2, you always reciprocate it. When you mention B on terms of transformation, you always reciprocate. So it's a factor of half. Because remember, B is a divisor. The reason we reciprocate is because it's dividing here. So when we mention it, we must reciprocate it, because it's a denominator. Yes. So basically, it's like here we multiplied. I just want to show you why we reciprocate. Remember, it's 360 divided by 2. But this is like 360 multiplied by 1/2. So this is the factor that we multiply by. I'm sure it makes sense, ladies and gents. A factor is what you multiply by, remember. By a factor of half. Yes. Perfect. And then the last 2 are easy. Now we're gonna come to this guy. We're done. Now we're gonna come to +10. Plus 10 just means to the left. Remember, plus is to the left. Let me just remind you here. Up it's plus, down is minus. Left and right are opposite. Left it's plus, right is minus. So if I see plus 10, I know I went to the left. So we'll just say 10 what? Degrees to the left. You see it. Then the last one I see it's up and down is the Q. Q takes you up and down. So we went 1 unit down because it's a minus. So we went down. Right. And that marks the end of this video. Tune in for the next video on this, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it helpful, please share with your classmates so that we can help me to grow the Say Guru movement. Tango.